What do two podcasters think about the Calix ConneXions conference? That's what we'll be talking about on our third annual Story Connect episode of kind of reflecting on the week here at the Calix ConneXions conference. My name is Andy Johns, your host with Pioneer, and I'm joined once again, as I said, for the third annual one of these by Megan McKoy-Noe.
Hi, y'all.
Thanks so much for hopping on. So we've got MDUs, we've got VBOs, we've got NPS, OMG. We have a lot to talk about. Let's get through all of the things that we were talking about here at the Calix ConneXions. As I said on most of the episodes here, we are at the epicenter of rural broadband here in the United States for, at least for this week, at the Win here in Las Vegas. Megan, this is your third time coming here. I know that we kind of alternated some sessions on purpose so that you could go to some and I could go to some. There are a lot of different things. Ecosystem was a word thrown out a lot. MDUs with those multi-dwelling units like apartment buildings. Yeah. So much talked about. What are some of the takeaways that you heard from the last few days out here in Las Vegas?
It has been exciting. And we weren't even on the Strip. So
True.
There have been a lot of really fun conversations and things that I didn't know about, which is one of the things I like about coming and hanging out with other storytellers. You get to learn new things. I didn't know that Calix has a community online just for sharing ideas. It's mainly being used by folks that geek out over technology, but it is also available for marketing and communication folks. So we had some good conversations about that, which was nice. They're going to start with Mad Marketing Mondays.
I heard that. I think one of the interesting things too is it's been interesting over the years, and when I was trying to count it up, this is probably number 7 or 8 for me out here. And it's been interesting to see. There was some COVID time in the middle there, so it's been closer to a decade of coming to these. Yeah. And the attitudes between folks, because there's such a mix here. There are folks that are municipalities. There are folks that are cooperatives. There are telcos that have been doing broadband for a long time. Yeah. There entities in tribal areas. There are more venture capital type folks that are here. Yeah. And it's almost a feeling I've noticed the last couple of years is not as much competing with each other as, hey, there's a big task that we have to connect America. There are a lot of different solutions to do it, so let's learn from each other here. And I think I feel like that came through a little more this time than maybe it has other years. I don't know.
Yeah, they have different takes every year.
Sure.
And this year, everything started out with some small roundtables, and we were just discussing things together. I was at a table talking about VBOs, which is value-based offerings.
Acronym number 1, we need a sound effect. Ka-ching.
Ding.
Yep.
So I had not heard that before, but it was another way to phrase something we've talked about before. And that was a lot of fun. Everyone was just sharing different words and what works best, and I jotted down a few of them. Simple and secure was one of the areas that they give, instead of talking about speed, of course. And we talk about this in our broadband marketing guide, the new one that came out earlier this year.
Right.
And they said, the folks at SC Telecom said that they had to take family out of the names of their plans. They had connected family. And they got feedback that said, you know what? I might not necessarily have a family. I just want a connected home, which I thought was really interesting. So folks are sharing what they're learning and the perceptions of these value-based offerings that they're building and putting together. I think Tech Titan was another one of my favorites. And then I was talking to Ty from ECE Fiber in Minnesota, and he said Tech... Oh, it was something really exciting.
Was it the minimalist?
No.
Technological minimalist was the word that I heard as one of the personas.
One of his?
I had practiced that one before the podcast, technological minimalist.
5 times fast.
A lot of Scrabble points there. And that was another persona that people are having. It's gone a lot beyond with those value-based offers that, kind of the low-hanging fruit is gamers, and then it's work from home, but people are getting more and more segmented in just how deep they can get in when they're talking about what they actually offer.
They are, and what I really loved is when I was interviewing Ty, and we'll have him, he's one of several stories that we were able to capture at Calix ConneXions this week. But when I was talking to him, we dived into how you were then tracking the metrics of each specific value-based offer.
Right.
And doing that by specific communities as well. And so really digging into the data. And that's one of the other things that, I don't know if you've been hearing about this a lot, but hearing how folks are really taking the metrics and turning them into motivation for their crews and to better success.
Which brings us to our next acronym of the podcast, the NPS. Ding.
Ding.
The Net Promoter Score is one that was talked about. We talked about it, I believe, on the last episode that we did like this, that it has become something that a few years ago, very few people in this industry were talking about. Now everybody's talking about it. They continue to make a big deal out of that, at the different scores folks have, what's driving those numbers up. And I think what was interesting talking to a few folks is that is a full team sport. The NPS. That's not anything that the marketing department can do by itself. Yeah. That's not anything that the CSRs can do by themselves.
No.
That takes the entire organization that's going to drive that Net Promoter Score up.
Yeah.
And I think that was interesting to hear from folks.
Yeah. No, I love that. And for folks that have not gotten on the NPS bandwagon yet, it's just how people feel about you.
Right.
Yeah.
Are they likely to recommend you to other folks?
Yeah.
So, or how likely they are.
How likely they are. One other phrase that just made me happy, because there's certain phrases I'll hear, and you have a couple that you're going to share later that are they just hit home for you. And someone was talking about using data to know when people are having a bad experience. And to track like the size of their home, and to know if the home is being served well, and letting the techs know how to make a better experience. And someone said you need to bring down walls to improve your experience at home. And I metaphorically, but also like being aware of how many walls are in a home.
No, it's also true.
It's kind of true. But I for some reason that just hit home for me, and thinking about the experience and how you can, before anyone calls with trouble, how can you anticipate what the needs are using the data, using what you know about the home before you even get there for the install.
Yeah, which is a great segue into the next piece I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
One of the key pieces to piggyback off of that Michael Wiening shared, the CEO of Calix, he got a call from somebody that he had known for years that had just signed up and finally gotten service from a provider that used Calix.
Yay.
So on screen he showed the property, and Michael had told this person that he might struggle unless he got these extra components. He might struggle to get the service all the way out in his detached garage shed area. And he said, no, it should be fine. But when he got it set up, he called Michael back and said, you're right, I need this other stuff. Why didn't they help me out by selling me that?
Yeah.
And I think that really goes to and we talked about it on a few of these for a while, but a lot of folks are becoming more and more familiar with the idea of selling. But particularly
so hard.
On the electric, electric side, they haven't had to do a lot of selling. And the same with municipals.
It's one thing that you're selling.
Right.
I mean, it's not complicated. Broadband is
Turns
complicated.
out. But the idea that you're not selling to make a buck, these folks need help. Yeah. And if you are talking with them, get to know them and realize, oh yeah, he does have a swimming pool out back. He does have a detached garage. He needs some service outdoors. Yeah. That outdoor service was really the big thing talked about that came out last year. I would say in terms of the physical layout of the Wi-Fi at the home, it was MDUs, which is our third acronym of the podcast. Ding! So MDUs being that multi-dwelling unit where they are all the apartments, condos, that kind of thing. Yeah. That was the big focus, is looking at how to get folks service in the backyard so that strong Wi-Fi service can be anywhere on the property, and then also how to get the service in an apartment. Yeah. The way that they talked about it today, 30%, I didn't know this, 30% of Americans live in what's considered an MDU. So apartments, condos, duplexes, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And more, though, especially in the bigger cities, typically the the electric cars are going to be, a lot of the time it'll be self-driving soon.
I was going to say.
Down in the parking deck, which may be underneath the apartments, and the electric vehicle chargers may be on the very bottom floor, which means those cars need Wi-Fi all the way 3 or 4 stories underground to be able to download the new software updates and everything. And he said, if you're thinking about an apartment complex or a condo as just single family homes stacked on top of each other, you're missing the point. Yeah. So, using the equipment, of course, that the Calix has available, other providers do too, but just the thought that to think of those apartments, those condos, and I know a lot of our more rural listeners may not have those, but to be thinking about that as just an entirely different thing to approach, I think is interesting.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it all comes down to understanding the experience and the needs, and those needs are not static. They are constantly changing as technology is evolving. So,
and that's really one of the themes of the whole conference, is that change.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I had the privilege, I love doing this every year, going to their Women in Telecom lunch. And you could come too. It's not just the girls.
It's good to know.
Yeah, but we had Polly LeBear speak this year, and she's one of the founders of Fast Company magazine. Amazing, amazing woman. But everything that she talked about was the power to change your mindset. So it wasn't just, how you can change yourself, but how you can change the way that you are thinking so that you can learn how to, or so you can adapt to change, because things are changing so fast. A lot of the conference has been about AI, artificial intelligence.
Does that count as acronym
number? Yeah, let's go ahead.
Ding.
So artificial intelligence, AI, it's a whole different way of thinking about workflows, thinking and approaching business. And so Polly LeBear was talking about what you need to do to be able to think differently and have a more elastic mind and approach to things. And there were several things that just really stuck out for me with her. One of them that I figured you would love was to seek out the subversives. She advises, and everyone's like, wait, what?
Subversives, okay.
But she said you need to stay connected to the edge. You need to invite challenge. And sometimes that's hard for us. We get comfortable, we know what we know, and we want folks to say, yeah, you're good. But if you want to be able to adapt to this constantly shifting world that we're in, and you want to be able to think that way, to have that elastic mindset, you have to seek out the subversives. You've got to hang out with people that are not like you, which is hard sometimes, but very important. She was talking about having a growth loop, which I thought was fun. Try things, fail, learn from what happens, refine your approach, and then try again. And she said you need an accountability buddy.
Oh.
Andy, will you be my accountability buddy?
Absolutely. I kind of thought maybe I already was. I don't know.
But it was a really fun process, and she shared several examples of businesses and business leaders that are just not settling for the way things are now, but letting folks challenge you, and through that, trusting yourself, trusting your team, and being able to adapt to change as it comes at us.
I've certainly tried this week to keep an elastic mind. At this point, this many days in, it's like the elastic in that 10-year-old pair of sweatpants in the drawer. It is pretty stretched out at this point. But I think as you're talking through those things, I'm thinking about the talk that Gina Schuler from Home Telecom did. She was on an episode of Stork Enough podcast a couple years ago.
Okay.
She was talking about some of the way that they're thinking about not just search marketing, but now they're looking at, people are Googling who is the best provider in my area for broadband, and it's that AI response. They are doing things like working, because they're looking at where does Google pull that information in those AI summaries, where do they pull that from, how can they improve it so they are showing up on there. And that's not the kind of thing that marketing folks thought we were having to do 2 or 3 years ago. That is a very new thing that folks are having to look at.
And folks, we've talked about this a bit in our broadband marketing guide, but we are all familiar with SEO, search engine.
5?
I don't know.
That's kind of an old one.
We'll give it a ding.
Ding.
A search engine optimization, and that is shifting now to GEO, generative engine optimization.
Ding.
Ding.
6? Is that 6? I'm trying to keep up with it. I think that's 6.
I hope y'all are having as much fun as we're having right now.
But one of the things that was, and we can kind of close with this, Charlene Lee, who was an author that spoke here at the Calix ConneXions conference, she was talking about change, and that's a lot of what her work is around, is adapting to change, leadership change, filtering that throughout an organization. And she said, you can only change at the speed of trust.
Oh, that's deep.
And I liked it, and I thought it resonates really well with our folks, our members at Pioneer, the folks that we work with, because that trust that you've built up over years and decades through that, that communication through your magazine or your other channels, that reputation that you have as being, the go-to folks in an area for, technology or for electric service, whatever it is that you're offering to folks. That trust is so important, and I think that's really important to keep in mind as we're looking at all the change coming in. Yeah. You've got to make sure that there's that trust with it all the way.
Yeah, you can't jump forward on the technology train and leave your community behind.
And that goes back to the AI training that you've been doing for forever. By forever, like I mean 2.5 years, which is forever in the AI in the world we're in right now. Yeah. But that you can't forfeit that trust by trying to move too fast.
No, you've got to. It's all a balancing act, Andy.
Yep. Well, are there any other takeaways you had before we wrap up here at the conference?
I think the only other thing I would say, and it's one of the biggest messages that's been blasted all over the place, are these little creatures that are cuddly and look almost like minions, but not the trademarked version of minions. The agentic AI approach that Calix has, that they're going to be rolling out in 2026. And I'm excited to see what that is going to look like. We had the very first general session was focused on how they're going to be integrating artificial intelligence agents into workflows to help bring the data that we have. They called it a data lake, which I love, finding a way to get all the data aligned. It's something that my husband does in his job, to make sure all the data can talk to each other and make sense together. So they're pouring all this data from different sources into a data lake, and then allowing the agents to pull specific knowledge from that to help educate your team so that they can anticipate needs, they can anticipate trouble before it hits, and help you improve the experience for your community.
And to do that, are they using like more traditional data banks, kind of where they've got those terms, or are they using the new
banks of the lake?
LLMs? I mean, are they... LLM, I was really just trying hard to work in LLM, which would be acronym number 7. Ding.
Sorry. Learning language models. What they are doing, and this is kind of fun, it might be geeking out a little too, I don't want to wade too deeply into the data lake with y'all, but here we go.
Dive in.
So what they explained yesterday is that they are pulling a version of let's say Chat GPT. They're working with Google, so it might be a version of Gemini or something. Sure. But they're pulling a learning language model off of the internet, so it's not connected to anything. It's all about security for your data, right? And then they're having it run on Calix's platform. So it is not connected to anything else. It is only pulling data from their data lake.
And that's part of that trust that we were talking about.
It is part of the trust. And it's one of the biggest concerns that folks have about AI. We're building agents in the classes that we're running right now on AI to show folks how you can scrape publicly available information. But for Calix, the data they're working with is very highly confidential, secure data. So that's why they were explaining to everybody, and they made these characters, they're very colorful, they're blue, yellow, orange, purple. They're making them look approachable and personable because they don't want people to be scared by those. But they want them to understand that these are tools to help change the way we're thinking about what we do, leveraging the data that we have and doing it securely. So they are pulling the learning language model that has been created, pulling it down, and then running it just on the Calix platform. It's not connected anywhere else. So we are looking forward to speaking more to Calix as they roll this out.
Sure.
And with several other of our partners. I know NISC is working on some of this as well, working on finding ways to take this exciting thing that is AI and make it something that makes your lives easier, helps you anticipate and elevate the experiences of your community. And I will say, for anyone that is wondering about how all this works, we are going to be having another workshop in April, right after Story Connect. It is an add-on. We're going to be in Tacoma, Washington, and you can have 4 hours to go over different definitions of AI with us, to dive in head first into agentic AI, what it means, and maybe build an agent yourself. So it'll be fun.
I think it's very smart from a marketing standpoint. The AI that looks more like the guys here, the kind of Big Hero 6 version,
Oh,
not the Terminator version,
Yes.
but the squishy friendly kind of fun AI. The only other thing I would get into, I'm actually going to wait because we do have a whole, one of the other sessions was on employee incentives,
Yeah.
but we recorded 2 or 3 episodes about that. You had one with Bill from Beacon Broadband. I had one as well with Shelley from SC Telecom. So you'll have to wait for those. How's that for a professional podcast tease right there?
Look at that. We're all about teasers here. It's fun.
I only wish there was an acronym for teaser so we could work that in again. But if we're make sure to tune in because those episodes will be coming out in the feed and on YouTube here shortly. So Megan, thanks so much for joining me on this episode and for being here at Calix ConneXions.
Andy, thank you so much for having me. It's been a treat.
Do you want to do it together?
Sure. Until we
And
talk
talk-
again. Oh. All right, hold on. 1, 2, 3.
Do we have the and on the front? And until we talk again?
I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
And until we talk again, keep
telling your
story.
Story Connect is produced by Pioneer Utility Resources, a communications cooperative that is built to share your story. Story Connect is engineered by Lucas Smith of Lucky Sound Studio